All right, I'm ready when you are.
Hello, students. So, as you could tell, we had a little trouble getting started tonight, and that's because I was taking a nap. And I am not proud of that, but that's the fact of it. So I apologize for it slipping my mind. I am in California, so it is a little earlier in the day, and I just got off my day job and I was a little sleepy. So I took a nap. Very reasonable. I did a reasonable thing, but
Better to tell the truth up front than let the scandal hit you later.
Yeah, I don't want it to come out at some later point that
the press will be all over it.
The press will be all over it, and we know how that goes. So
that's right. Yeah.
Again, with us tonight is Professor McClellan.
Hey there.
He's braving New York City. And,
yes.
I am, braving California, and you're in New Jersey. So we're all dealing with a lot of craziness and getting used to masks and Instacart and all the other fun things that have been going on. And we're there with you, and we're promoting flexibility and understanding and hibernation, perhaps.
Yeah.
I have been much like a bear and been sleeping.
You're also observing two separate stages of the fact that at least here all the barber shops are closed. So
is that a 4-year-old?
No, that's just I have like the clippers, so I just did the clippers on myself. So
did that work out for you?
It depends on your aesthetic, but
I was wondering. Your hair does seem to be getting lighter. I've known Robin for a few years, and both of us seem to be getting blonder or some such thing.
Grayer, and it has been sunny.
It has been sunny. And you've been using some sun in. It's my 80s reference for the day. Been using some sun in to bring out your natural highlights.
That's right. Yep.
I like how we're just getting right to it today. We're just going right to the content, right to the important stuff, because we've only kept you waiting.
Right in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I started a live Q&A on Piazza, which is a brand new feature. So it was moderately successful. I don't know if a couple people asked questions, but
was it like a video?
No, it's like I don't quite understand the distinction with regular Piazza. It just like means that there's a professor there answering questions in real time, which sometimes we're doing anyway. So I'm gonna.
Well, I stuck the video at the top of the live Q&A, so.
Oh, okay.
So they can watch it there, or they can.
Oh, so you put it in both places. Perfect.
Yeah, I put it in both places.
Excellent.
Make up for the lack of,
Yes.
being awake.
All right, so I'm ready to jump into Unit 4.
Yes, and we definitely want to hit that core concept exam.
Yeah, should we talk about that first?
Yeah, why don't we go for that first? Because
I'll share my screen.
People are nervous.
Yes. Host disabled attendee screen sharing. How could you do this to me?
Well, no, it's not me.
No, I know. It's Zoom is like changing their features a mile a minute because everyone. Quick anecdote about Zoom, which is what we're using for this. My 3-year-old child has been having Zoom meetings with his toddler preschool class.
Did he get Zoom bombed?
No, luckily. Well, they all Zoom bombed each other.
Oh.
Because they're toddlers.
Oh, yes. Zoom bombed. So was that the anecdote?
That was it, yep.
Oh, that wasn't really an anecdote. That was sort of more of a...
It's just a factoid. I don't know.
I've been sitting on so many providing Zoom support on so many courses. So.
Well, toddlers. Have you worked with toddlers?
I have not.
They don't tip well.
But I've worked with the elderly.
Oh well, that's not unrelated demographic.
Yeah.
All right. So can I share? Let's see.
Yeah. Let's dig right in on the exam. One thing to keep in mind, it's something before we start that I want to make clear. The practice exam, you can do that right now. You could do that whenever you want to. Go ahead and practice, because the practice exam, well, it's identical in that it pulls all from the same quiz bank. So if you have trouble with the practice exam, you're going to have trouble with the regular exam. It will show you exactly what types of questions you're going to get. It's, you know, so you can do that over and over and over again. And if you haven't done the Proctor Track onboarding quiz, do it now. You know, go ahead and get your profile showing. They're going to want to see your ID. If they see your ID and your hand, even if the screen looks weird afterwards, your profile should go through. So you'll be fine. But I see that we're getting questions, so I'm going to let Robin get to it and stop goofing around.
Well, I wanted to answer one of the questions that came in, because I think it's something that a lot of people will be wondering, which you just answered in part, but somebody asked the top 2 or 3 questions. One of them is, can a sheet of plain paper be brought into the exam for you to draw out the circle of fifths and so on? Yes, you can bring a blank piece of paper and a pencil and then hold it up in front of the camera before the exam starts to show it's blank, and then you can draw from memory as a reference for anything that you need to have with you as you go along. And then, yeah, the practice exam is super important because it lets you really do the exam essentially in advance as many times as you want to hone your skills. And then once the real exam starts, you know pretty much if you did well on the practice exam, you'll do well on the real exam. But this was also asked, you can only take the real exam once. It's a one-time deal, whereas everything else you can retake multiple times. So make sure you're in your right location, quiet setting, where hopefully you won't be interrupted. Although I will say, if you get interrupted and it's not your fault, don't stress it. Just tell whoever it is to go away because you're taking an exam, and that you'll talk to them later and come back to the exam, and you won't be, that's not a violation of any kind. But speaking of violations, do not attempt to have someone take the exam for you, or to have somebody sit next to you giving you signals or something, because we will know and we will see, and then we will have to deal with a major cheating violation. And that's not good for you, and it's not good for us. And
yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
And again, you don't need it, because you have that practice exam to tell you exactly how well you're going to do.
And also remember that there's going to be a computer algorithm taping you. I mean,
yep.
And kind of finding errors. So if we've all seen that video of the person who forgot they were on a Zoom meeting and went to the restroom.
Yeah.
Don't forget you're in the exam.
Yeah, I had.
We don't want to see your exam on YouTube.
Yeah, I've had students, roommates. I guess you're not at your dorms now, but in the past, I've had students, roommates start changing their clothes in the background while the person is taking their exam. So just be aware of your surroundings. We will not be watching your exam every minute. What happens is we get this version where it highlights a moment that we're supposed to look at that might be some kind of violation. And usually it's just you scratching your head or stretching or something, but sometimes it's people cheating. So we do have to watch those, but we're not just sitting there watching you, but we will see you on the screen if we are called to by this software. And then somebody asked, just want to make sure, can the practice exam be taken several times? Yes. And the core exam itself is, yes, it is timed. So again, plan the time and plan your schedule so you can be really focused while you take it. It's a real-time deal. And the practice exam is not timed, I don't think, and it does not count toward the grade at all. It's just purely for practice. For the thirds and sixth interval, how do you determine major and minor, and how to construct the intervals? We will talk about that tonight. The practice exam takes place in, somebody asked, is the practice exam Proctor Track? No, the practice exam takes place in Canvas in the regular course where you normally do everything. But you have to start ProctorTrack, which is a separate program, which will sort of oversee while you're taking the exam in Canvas, if that makes sense. Yeah. So let me, I don't know if you can see what you're looking at, whether you're looking at the Piazza screen right now.
Yeah, Piazza.
Okay. So jumping back here. Yeah, we'll go through the assignments. Just, oh, is there anything else that I should talk about the exam? Let me see. Let's try. So read,
Well,
I just want to highlight that.
Do you want to go through maybe
some
do
of the
couple, you know,
yeah,
because I
that's
mean,
a good
I know
idea.
that it's a good review and it's been a while. They had a big break.
Yep. No, that's a good idea. And I want to call attention to all of this stuff here. Instructions for using ProctorTrack, ProctorTrack student tutorial, ProctorTrack onboarding quiz, which you have to do, rules for taking an exam. Read all of that really carefully because this is a big part of your grade and it's important to get that right. So let me jump into the practice.
And if you have trouble with it, you can write to us, but really write to ProctorTrack because we you know, we're not experts in ProctorTrack software to be able to give you support for what possible extension could be interfering with ProctorTrack on your particular system. That is their gig. That's what they're there for. And so go ahead and let them help you with that. That's part of the fee that gets paid for using their service. So you can write to us, but we'll just say go and talk to them because we probably won't be able to help you.
Yeah, almost always it's a technical issue with ProctorTrack. Yeah, so you'll get much faster help. So I just showed you the support page and I'm gonna just throw that link in Piazza for you. So that you can maybe bookmark it or do something with it that helps you remember later. Or you could put the number into your phone so that it's handy, something like that. Although, by the way, don't be looking at your phone during the exam because, again, we will see you doing that if you have a website pulled up or something like that. All right, so notice this is very important here too. Exam content pulled from the following assignments: 4, 5, 11, and 20. Now think of all the assignments in this whole course. That's not very many. These are kind of the core topics. And so you could, if the practice exam isn't enough for you, you can also go back and review those assignments and notice that they are from multiple different units because, again, this is a course-wide exam to make sure you have those core skills that define your ability to understand music theory. So first, pitch identification. This is kind of like if this were a language class, this is like basic vocabulary. Like how do you say table in music language? Well, so you really just have to know the clefs. And again, hopefully this is pretty second nature by now. But remember the treble clef is like a big fancy G with that goes around the second line of the staff, which is the G line, and that's kind of your reference point. And then you can count down the spaces in the lines to get to this, which would be an A, and then it's an A flat. And then the other thing that's important is to format it correctly. So, for example, it has to have the name of the letter name dash flat in this case. That's a G, that's an A sharp, and so forth and so on. And then into the bass clef, the bass clef is a fancy letter F with the line around the second line from the top, or the little F things. So again, you can count down. So F is the line, E is the space, D is the line, all the way down, and then you get this down, that would be a G, low G, and so on and so forth. And then we have the part where you do the piano identification so that you can know what pitch on the staff matches what pitch on the piano in the same octave. So here you can use middle C as a reference point, which is note key number 40. And these numbers on the piano are meaningless except as reference pitches to help you count, so you don't have to count from the bottom every single time. So for example, if you're, let's do this one, start on the staff and find middle C, which would be the ledger line below the staff. Next line is E, next line is G, B, D, F, an octave up. So middle C is this number 40 here. Go up an octave to note key number 52. That would be the C on the second space from the top. And then go up to the F. That would be note key number 57, but it has a flat, and so it's one key to the left, the white key to the left, which is also known in other situations as E natural. But the answer here is simply the number 56 because it's the 56th key on the piano. Let's do another one. Oh, this one's super easy. This is middle C, and middle C is key number 40. Sometimes it's harder to go downward for some reason. Let's do this one quickly. So middle C is the ledger line above the staff. Down an octave, C is the on the space, second space from the bottom. Go down a whole other octave, C is the second ledger line down. So now we're middle C, down an octave to note 28, key number 28, down another octave to key 16, and then a few more down. So C, B is the space. That's note number 15. And then one more semitone down, A sharp, it would be key number 14. So those are, there's just takes some sort of methodical thinking, but it's definitely doable. Then we get into beat division and subdivision and the whole concept of meter, which as you probably experienced is one of the tougher parts of the course. So no shame if you need to go back and do lots of review and just making sure you're really solid on this. Sorry, just having a sip of water. And so remember basically the terminology here of simple meter versus compound meter has to do with what happens inside of each beat. Simple meter, the beat divides into two equal parts, like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and in compound meter, the beat divides into three equal parts and has a really different feeling. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and so then the triple, quadruple, duple part of it just tells you how many beats there are in an entire measure. And so simple triple, the first thing actually it works to start with the second word in the pair of words. It's actually more important in a sense. So that's means 3 beats. So you can rule out all of the answers except those that say 3 beats. And then which one of those 3 beats would divide in 3 or 3 beats which divide in 2. And that's where simple and compound come into it. And simple means you divide in 2. So the answer here is 3 beats which divide in 2. And then different way of saying, different way of wording it, 3 beats per measure with 3 divisions of each beat. That's kind of like another way of saying which divide in 2. And 3 divisions of each beat. So this is again compound triple. Not again, this is a different answer, but compound triple because the beat division is 3. So again, if you need practice on that, go back to Unit 2. Let's do one more. Compound duple meter. Duple means 2 beats, so you can rule out everything except 2 beats. So is it 2 beats divide in 3 or 2 beats divide in 2? Compound means divide in 3, so there's your answer. Then we get into this arithmetic stuff with how different beats and note values divide into each other. So you have to think of the beat as a note value that depends on the time signature, and it's unusual for a beat to be a 16th note, but it can happen. And in simple meter, it would divide in half, and half of a 16th note is a 32nd note. Add one more flag or beam. In simple meter, if the beat was a whole note, the beat would divide evenly into which. So in simple meter, it divides in equally in two, so 2 half notes. It gets trickier in compound meter. In compound meter, if the beat was a dotted whole note, compound divides into 3 equal parts, so that's 3 half notes, and so on. Which of the following is a compound division of a whole note? This can be tricky because you have to get into triplets, which are kind of an exception to the rule. So a whole note doesn't naturally divide into 3 equal parts, so you have to use a triplet symbol to fit 3 half notes in the space that normally 2 would fit, or in the time, I should say. Oof. Then we get into the key signatures, where we say you have to know a bunch of different things about keys and notes on the scale and how they fit in, and key signatures. So based on the major key signature, what is the harmonic function of the given note? So start with the given note. We'll start with the key signature. It's major, and so 2 sharps major key is D major, and then I usually go to the scale degree number from there, so of the note that I'm given. So if D is the tonic, that's 1. I count up 5 notes to get to A, and that's the 5th scale degree, which is also known as the harmonic function. And go back to review the fact that any note in the scale can be called by 3 different names. Its scale degree number, its harmonic function name, or its solfege name. And so they're all sort of equivalent. Each note just has 3 different names in that sense. They all refer to the same note, and you just have to memorize them and know what matches what. So like 2nd scale degree is the supertonic and also re. 6th scale degree is the submediate and also la, and so on. Then we're in the minor keys. Then you have to know relative major and minor. So that again, before we were on D major with 2 sharps. What's the relative minor of D major, which shares the same key signature? Well, it's the 6th scale degree in D major, which is B. So we're in B minor, and D is the 3rd note of the scale in B minor, which makes it the mediant, and therefore it would be mediant. And that about wraps up the exam. So it's, it requires some deep knowledge, but it's not comprehensive. It doesn't cover every single thing in the entire course, which makes it doable and manageable. Now, I just want to check for questions. We're probably getting a lot of them, or at least some. Okay, so back to, why don't we go through some of the homeworks? Anything I'm missing here?
We did get a question about whether or not the questions on the exam are pulled from homework assignments. And yes, they're all things you should have encountered already if you have completed the homework assignments. There's nothing new, nothing tricky, and we specify which homework assignments we pull the questions from. And you'll be happy to know that some of the more challenging ones are not ones we use. The most challenging thing you're going to have to do is know the harmonic function of different notes, so be able to read key signatures.
Yep. Very, very true. Let me jump into generic intervals. So we use, if you ever studied theory before, you might have encountered a slightly different terminology, the interval number and the interval quality. And we use specific, general and specific for that same purpose, to distinguish between two ways of determining an interval. And one is kind of the more broad category and one is the more specific category. So one is the generic and one is the specific. And generic really means the distance between two pairs of pitches based on their position on the staff and their letter name, without regarding anything about the sharps or flats on the notes. And so the generic part of it is easier to determine. It's a much more simple calculation. And the only thing you really have to remember is that there's no zero, and that the first, if you're counting from one to the other, the first note is 1, and then you count by lines and spaces to get to the next note, or by letter names of the alphabet. So for example, F is 1, G is 2, A is 3, B is 4, and C is 5. And that's all you need to know. It's a fifth. And it will always be a fifth as long as it is written on those lines and spaces and with those letter names. You could add a double, triple sharp to the bottom note and a triple flat to the top note, and it would still be a fifth because it's F to F to C. That's all that matters for whether it's a generic interval. And that's maybe the hardest thing about this, is just remembering that and not getting thrown off when you see sharps and flats on the notes. For example, someone might say like D to B sharp is a second, because if on the piano, those are two white notes next to each other. But B sharp is still a B, even though it's the same key as C natural on the piano. And so it's still a third, even though it sounds like a major second. So this is why intervals are a little confusing, because the same two notes on the piano keyboard can be two different intervals. That's probably the most confusing thing about it. And the thing that matters for you in doing this is not usually what the keys on the keyboard are, but what the notes on the page or on your screen are. Here's an example. D to D is 8, so it's going to be an octave no matter what. So when you go through this, just get used to not paying attention to what oh, I saw an interesting one. This is F to A, even though there's ledger lines, crazy ledger lines, so that's a third. F, G, A, 1, 2, 3. That's all you need to know for this. So I'm gonna move ahead. So let's see. So then we get into, we pair, each assignment is a pair of intervals. And if you recall in the lesson, the reason these are paired is because they are what we call inversions of each other. So if you take C to F, C up to F, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, D, E, F, it's a fourth. But if you do C down to F, C, B, A, G, F, it's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so that's a fifth, but it's the same two notes. And so that fact means that those two intervals are very closely related and sort of have this interesting relationship. So we put them together in the same assignments. So now we get to the question, I think somebody asked, how do you tell, where was this one? Yeah, for thirds and sixths, how do you determine major and minor, how to construct the intervals? So let me try to elucidate that a little bit. The fourth, identify the fourth below is perfect or augmented. So we were telling you that it's a fourth. Don't get thrown off. Don't start to think it's something else. It is a fourth, again, as long as it's spelled with those letter names. Now you can figure out the quality, and this is where, or I still think of it as quality, but this is where we're asking you the specific interval size. And this is counted, think of it as a more precise ruler of the exact distance between the two notes counted in half steps, a ruler with half step increments. You can't go wrong if you count in half steps, and unlike counting in generic intervals, specific intervals do have a 0. And this is where it's helpful to have the piano keyboard. So E flat, the next note is 0. Sorry, E flat is 0. Next note is E natural 1, F 2, F sharp 3, G 4, G sharp 5, A 6. And that would make this an augmented fourth. And you can memorize or quickly write down on your blank piece of paper the number of half steps or semitones in each specific type of interval. So it's a 2-step process. First, what is the interval based on its letter names and position on the staff? And then what type of specific interval it is based on the number of half steps involved. And so that's again why if you add lots of sharps or flats to an interval, it can change the number of half steps in it without changing the generic interval number. Probably in some imaginary world, somebody could have come up with a more strictly logical way of notating this, but it does work for musicians. Then we get to, requires you to add or not, add an accidental or not. So you really have to know your stuff for this one. Perfect fourth, the way I do these is I try to memorize or get a sense of what would be the interval if it had no sharps or flats on it. And I'm just used to A to D being a perfect fourth. So if I see that the A has a sharp, I know that to preserve that relationship of perfect fourth from A to D, the D has to have a sharp too. It's like you've changed the A, so you have to change the D by the same amount by adding a sharp. So that would be D sharp. It's kind of a shortcut maybe. You also have to memorize where the augmented and diminished intervals are on the staff when there are no sharps and flats, and it's pretty much between F and B. And so normally like this right here is a D to or G to D is a perfect fourth by itself. Forget about the A4 there. But this one is an augmented fourth by itself, so you actually have to add a flat to lower it down by 1 semitone to become a perfect fourth. So you really have to know your way around the staff and the keyboard. Yeah, okay. Trying to move kind of quickly because we started late and it's late for everybody and you're probably exhausted. And oops, I just went back to that one. The other assignments are similar. It's kind of like each assignment is a different version of the other, with just so I'm going to skip thirds and sixths and do seconds and sevenths. Actually, somebody asked about thirds and sixths, so let me do that one. I'll skip the next one. It's really the same process. You have to remember that you have to sort of know what the interval is with all by itself with no sharps or flats, and then apply the sharps and flats. So again, these are both thirds, no matter what, because of the way that they're spelled on the page. But the sharps or flats change them. So B to D natural, B natural, D natural would be a minor third, but the D is sharped, so it becomes a major third. Likewise, this would be a major third, C to E, but the E is flat, so it's minor. Yeah, this is sort of the other way around. it's getting bigger from the bottom side instead of the top side. So that's a little bit different. Yeah, I'm going to try to move a little more quickly. Again, it's really the same process, so I think I won't rehash it, but you just have to know what the intervals would be with no sharps or flats, and then apply the sharps or flats and make the necessary adjustment. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, diatonic intervals. Let me talk about that. Okay. Oh yeah, so this is kind of like the same basic process, but now you're in the context of a key with the key signature. So instead of sharps and flats being applied to the note, each note as it goes along, they are applied according to the key. So you have to just remember that the key signature means that all notes by that letter name, no matter what octave, are adjusted. So in this first example, there's a G, there's no sharp right in front of the G, but there is a G sharp in the key signature. So that is a G sharp and that is a C sharp. And so you need to think of them that way as you're calculating the intervals. And so for example, here we have an A flat and a B flat. Here we have a F sharp and a B natural, and so on and so forth. And so it's, if you can do the earlier part, you can do this as well. Here we have a B flat and a G natural. Whew, I feel like my voice is giving out. What else? Is there anything else I should cover?
Not, did I miss you doing compound?
Oh, where are those?
I don't know. Maybe I think they're in the diatonic intervals, but you know, I don't think it's so critical. We can always answer questions as they come up. I mean, we kind of hit the basics, and you've really soldiered through.
Yes. Are there other questions that have come in?
There seems to be.
Michelle, for the exam minor key signature, what is the harmonic function of the given note? Is it always going to be a leading tone for a note that's... No, well, not always.
We get those raised sixth scale degrees.
Yeah, you get the raised sixth and raised seventh. Both of them can be raised.
Yeah, like, so you've got E flat minor. Are you asking about C natural would be the sixth scale degree?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so that's not the leading tone, but it is raised. Usually if the leading tone is raised, then, and you're moving upward, then the sixth is also raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But the raised sixth scale degree, the name doesn't change. It's still submedian.
Right. And in general, don't rely on a rule of thumb like that for this type of stuff. Try to read the notes that you see and figure them out every time from scratch. Because if you say like, oh, if I ever see a sharp or flat, that's automatically the leading tone. It could be a time saver most of the time, but then there will be a case where it's not that one, and then it'll.
I mean, for instance,
like this one.
Yeah, like that one. That was.
Yeah.
That's a submedian. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not a terrible heuristic, but you gotta.
Right.
You shouldn't trust it.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. Well, anything else that we should talk about?
No, I think it's bedtime.
Yes, bedtime for me.
Yeah.
Maybe out in California it's bedtime for certain people.
Yeah, apparently, you know, old guys like me need fall asleep sitting in our lounge chairs. Not that I have a lounge chair.
Well,
if I did, I would fall asleep in it for sure.
Well, hopefully you were sitting on your porch yelling at kids to get off your lawn.
Yeah, social distance on my lawn. I don't have a lawn. That's California.
Yeah, oh, that's true. You have no water to grow grass or anything else.
There's grass around here, and that's not a problem. It's just, you're living in a community with a bunch of there's not a lot of green.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to go for green.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful springtime here, so.
Yeah, it doesn't feel quite real, does it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very strange.
Very weird.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for bearing with our lateness and
My lateness. All
Yes.
right, I own it. Didn't have to take responsibility for me.
But in 10 years of doing this course, this has happened only very rarely. So don't be thrown off by it.
Yep, we're here.
We're here. We are
we
reliable.
We're grading your homework assignments, and they'll be done sometime.
Yeah, I'm very, very slow. So if you're in my sections, I apologize. I'm moving.
I'm pretty slow too, but I'm making some progress. But give us some time. There's a whole heap and bunchy of this time, and we're all trying to deal with a lot of other things we're not used to dealing with.
Yep.
So give us some time. We'll get through. We'll get them back to you. And but from what I've seen so far, I'm quite impressed with the quality. There's several very, very fine examples. So
Excellent.
thanks for all your hard work, and we'll be in touch. We'll see you soon.
All right. Good night, folks.
Good night.